We have multiple Islanders updates to discuss on this episode of Islanders Digest after a tough 4-1 loss to the Kings, a loss where they also lost one of their defensemen. We're going to be really breaking that down and what that can mean for the roster moving forward, and also really talking about the implications of this loss in terms of the Islanders playoff push, or what really remains of it. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe to the channel, be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content, this is the channel for you. Now, that was a really tough game to watch. It seemed like the Islanders did put up a pretty decent effort, but it seems like that's just the case with the Islanders. They put up a decent effort, but they do not get the win once again. And to make it worse, the Islanders did get a tough injury to Adam Boqvist. Adam Boqvist, if you did not watch the game, did not return to start the third period. He had a rough hit where he really didn't get hit in the head, but it was an aggressive hit to his shoulder where his head really ricocheted to the side, and he did get up after, but he did look pretty shaken. They blew the whistle right away. They didn't call one of those 5-minute penalties to see whether or not it was a dangerous hit. Now, that being said, I'm not too upset because it wasn't a dangerous hit. I guess that the refs did see, I mean, it was a dangerous hit. It wasn't an illegal hit. It was relatively clean. Not the cleanest hit you'll see, but he had just moved the puck, and the primary contact was to his shoulder. I do think it was right for there not to be a call there, but it's still a tough blow to the Islanders nonetheless, and really a tough blow to Adam Boqvist. And we're really going to talk about that first here, because Adam Boqvist has really been, it seems like he's been given an opportunity to prove himself for the Islanders. For the past few games, it's really felt like he's been giving a tryout on whether or not the Islanders are going to be keeping him long term. And the results so far in his first 12 games for the Islanders have been pretty positive. He's put up 5 points, 1 on the power play. He has looked really good on the power play, which the Islanders really need, and we will get into later on in this video. Something has to change with the Islanders power play because it looks absolutely brutal, but it does look a little better when Boqvist is on the ice. And hopefully this injury is not too long, because he was taken out likely due to spotters. That likely means that we're dealing with a concussion here, so I'm hoping it isn't too bad. He gets back on the ice relatively soon, because it really seems like part of the Islanders' plan right now, while also trying to contend for the playoffs. They're not out yet, but it really seems like part of their plan recently has been to try out Adam Boqvist and really see if he's a fit for the team long term. Because he is an RFA, the Islanders can choose to keep him if they want to. I think they're going to do that, but it's really disheartening. And this is a player who has really struggled to find ice time in previous seasons. He started playing the NHL at 19 years old, really young for the Chicago Blackhawks. Honestly, he probably could have used another year of development. I think that's where a lot of these struggles have came in. But the bigger picture is Adam Boqvist is a player who has not been able to stay healthy. As you can see through a lot of his seasons, this is a player who gets injured a lot. And as a result, it has really stunted his growth for the NHL. Really can't develop his game because he's constantly not playing a full season. You look at all his years in the NHL, he has not played a single full season. This is the first year up until this point where he has been relatively healthy. Most of the games he missed for the Florida Panthers were more because of scratches rather than actual not being able to play. That being said, it is a blow, and I really hope that he can come back, finish the season, and really prove that he deserves a roster spot on the New York Islanders, because I like a lot of what he brings. And it's a unique situation. He is an older player. Yeah, you don't want to talk about when he was drafted, but he was drafted 8th overall, the same year that Noah Dobson was drafted. And you wonder if maybe some of his health issues have kind of kept him from really developing into the player he is going to be. And it seemed like he was really starting to kind of figure some things out for the Islanders. Hopefully he can come back. But if he doesn't come back, regardless, the Islanders are going to have to figure out something on this power play. The Islanders are 0 for 7 on the power play last night. I think they had 8 power plays. At one point they had a power play where it was a 5-on-3, and they still could not get anything going. And yeah, this has been a big problem for the Islanders all season. If we take a look at the league stats, the New York Islanders have the worst power play in the league. I'm cutting it off a little bit here. Let me see if there's, yeah, we got a better angle here. The Islanders have 11.9% of their power plays they score. That is absolutely abysmal. It's genuinely terrible. I mean, even the next team up has a 12.9, so an entire percentage point better than the Islanders, and that's the Anaheim Ducks, a team that is really struggling and who's been missing players like Zegras who are effective on the power play. 4 major points of the season. I know the Islanders have been missing Barzal, but there is no excuse for teams like the San Jose Sharks to be scoring at double the rate that you're scoring on the power play. The Islanders only have 19 power play goals all this season. And that's a big reason why this team is struggling so much. And these numbers need to be better. I know we had some quotes last night. The Islanders did score some goals on the power play that got disallowed. And one of them, the second one especially, probably looked like they should have counted. But at the end of the day, this really does not matter anymore. I don't want to hear, oh, this should have gone in, this should have counted. Realistically, at one point, Patrick Waugh said, well, in a way, we were actually 2 for 8 last night, not 0 for 8. And to that, I said, you know what? I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it anymore. This is a team that's been struggling all season long. It's not like you had a rough game and you have like a 25% power play and today it just didn't work. You scored 2 goals and it didn't count. No, before this, you had one game in San Jose where you scored 2 power play goals. And other than that, this team has not scored a power play goal in a month. This power play is desperately struggling. And you know what? Yeah, you got some goals disallowed. One of them, the first one, I'll admit it probably should have counted. I think the NHL made the wrong decision there. And sure, you can play the game. Well, if they take away the Anaheim's challenge there, because not Anaheim. If you take away the LA Kings challenge there because they were wrong and it should have been a goal, and then maybe the Islanders score the second goal, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you did, even though these goals were taken off, you still had the rest of the power play to prove them wrong and get a goal. And you know what? You didn't. And honestly, at points, this power play looked terrible. Even though it was a bad break, the Islanders did give up a shorthanded goal when Tony DeAngelo's stick exploded. It's unlucky. It's going to happen. But it seems like this is always happening for the New York Islanders. You went negative on special teams again in a game where you had so many opportunities to score on the power play. I know some goals got disallowed. At the end of the day, you got to be better. You got to stay out of the crease and just make something happen. And that's something the Islanders are not doing. And that's one of the main reasons why they are where they are in the standings right now. And time is running out for the Islanders. You know, they are still alive, as we're going to talk about right here. As you look, the Islanders have 65 points in 64 games. They're just barely above NHL 500. If they lose their next game to the Edmonton Oilers, they will be NHL 500, which is below technical 500 because you have the overtime losses that you have to discuss. But really, this is not good enough, especially this late into the season. The Islanders are really struggling. And the playoff picture is still alive. There is a way the Islanders do get into the playoffs. They no longer have games in hand over the teams that are in the playoffs. They've all played 64 games. The closest team to the Islanders in the playoffs right now is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have 70 points. Islanders have 65. So yes, you can say there's only 5 points away. It really does seem manageable. But at the same time, you don't have that many games left. You have under 20 games. And the Islanders are proving again and again with 18 games left that they really are struggling in all these games to get points. And at this point, it's really beginning to look unlikely that the Islanders make the playoffs, especially when you consider how many teams they have to cross. It's not just about getting 5 more points than the Columbus Blue Jackets. You also have to get more points than the Montreal Canadiens, than the New York Rangers, than the Boston Bruins, who despite selling do look really decent in their first 2 games. The Detroit Red Wings, you have all these teams in front of you. You also have to make sure teams like the Philadelphia Flyers remain behind you. Realistically, it's going to take a huge run for the New York Islanders to make the playoffs. If I'm guessing right off the bat of my head, you got 18 games left. I would say you have to win a good 13 of those to really give yourself a chance in that conversation. And to make things worse, if you take a look at Tankathon and their toughest schedules, the Islanders right now have the 3rd toughest schedule in the NHL. Coming up, they have to play the Capitals twice, the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Tampa Bay Lightning twice, the Oilers, the Minnesota Wild. And what really kind of puts doubt in my head in whether or not the Islanders can make the playoffs is if you look at some of the teams that are their easiest opponents they still have left to play, they've really struggled with the Rangers. Montreal has been a struggle this season. At this point, Vancouver looks like a more complete roster than them, even though Vancouver is an entire mess right now. We're not going to get into that. But even teams like the Flyers, they just feel like they're playing more competitive hockey right now, especially after trading Brock Nelson. Sidney Crosby and the Penguins seem to have a more complete roster than the Islanders right now. It's going to be really tough for the Islanders to get these points, and unless the way they play really changes, and having a better power play could really help them. But at this point, I think it is tough to expect that the Islanders are going to improve drastically on the power play. I think it is what it is at this point. And because of that, it just seems really tough to kind of envision the Islanders making the playoffs, at least the way things stand. That being said, they are still alive. They're going to have to try to find a way. It's just at this point in time, I'm not seeing it right now. That being said, I could be wrong. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Islanders can still make the playoffs? What do you think they do now that Adam Boqvist is out of the lineup? I assume that Scott Mayfield will be replacing him, but let me know what you think is going to happen. Do you think maybe a Scott Perunovich or even Mike Riley comes in to replace that spot? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and let's go Islanders.